What would you do if you were given $18 million to spend? Buy a nice house, invest in the stock market, maybe give some to charity. You fool. There is only one right answer. Putting it all into your scouting and development budgets. Yes. Strangely enough, that extra money takes us from the 20th highest payroll in the league to 21st. There must have been some kind of realignment in the live start which gets shifted about once the second season starts. I decided to take a look at the unofficial 2025 draft, just to see how much I needed to put into the draft budget, but looky who I found. One Charlie Condon, who we missed out on last year. Now I'm really praying for that number one pick. And there are of course some international amateur free agents to get tricked by. None of them will be as good as they say on the tin, but if I wanted any of them to not be a mirage, it would be this absolute god of a pitcher in Vincent Caballero. I don't care about that low intelligence. If his potential stays like this into January 15th, I'm using all my money on him right away. No questions asked. Now then, on to the actual start of the off-season. We had all of the contract options in, beginning with Yoan Moncada. This contract really didn't work out both in real life and in the game. Your 106 OPS plus and 1.6 WAR was good, Yoan, but not 25 million good. It's a free buyout though, which is rather nice. John Brebbia had a $6 million team option, which, considering our overall bullpen and our newfound back of the sofa coins, I decided to execute. If I was controlling the team, I'd make him a stopper to get some quality innings out of him, but I'm not, so that was all wasted breath. Max Stacy was also chomping at the bit for a $7.5 million year. I chomped at his catcher's mask though, and he ran away. Oh no, what a disaster. Where else will I find a replacement level catcher for such a bargain? Speaking of catchers, Cuero's injured, so my plan for the dev lab got shunted a bit. Just in case you didn't know, if you set it up on the first day of the off-season, you can get a long and a short programming. And I'm banking on the live start not messing that up, because Cuero really needs that boost. The two relievers we picked in the draft are on the programs I'd mentioned. Monty's in there to try to bump him up to durable, and the other three slots go to marginally above average pitchers who could make a big impact if they improve. We'll have a lot of players not getting extended through arbitration, notably Mr. De Jong, who was our second best everyday player last year. He had a bit of an unstable BABIP, especially with his on-paper ratings. And we're also letting go of the rest of our infield in Lopez and Mendick. 20 points to you if you figure out how we'll be replacing them. Lose 10 points if you said Monty, because the Rule 5's around the corner, and we're gonna be milking that like there's no tomorrow. In a shocking twist, we actually won an award. How, you ask? By Andrew Vaughn being an incredibly average first baseman, that's how. Let's hope we get a few more that actually mean something by the end of our 5 years in charge. Oh. Well. That was easy. Well done, Lewis. You get a parade. Andrew can come along too, I guess. Drop everything. The international free agents have come through, and they've invited a magical gremlin along with them. That bat, is it worth it? I'm majorly considering a move. There are other great players out there, but his nickname... I'm not sure I can resist that for long. I'll wait for the scout to get back with an accurate report. Oh look! Some replacement level catchers! Thank you, universe, you're truly looking out for me. And I've offered out minor league contracts to anyone with the ability to come in and not embarrass themselves in the active squad. They don't have much to worry about considering how last year went. A few of them will also just be minor league filler with good personalities. Hey you! Yeah, you! Remember when I prayed for the number one pick in the draft? Well, I clearly wasn't praying to the right RNG gods. We pick 9th. Thanks! I hate it. It's Rule 5 time first though, and we're looking for players who can, let me check my notes again. Right, players who can breathe. We take pitcher Logan Allen in round 1, outfielder Sandro Fabian in round 2. We'll take a flyer on P.T. Halpin in the 3rd, and round it off with another pitcher in Randy Vasquez. I was poking offers out to our favourite gremlin, but he's priced his way out after a bid from Toronto. I'll have to see what I can find bargain hunting instead. We can afford Kentaro, but I'd like to be able to pay arbitration next year too. In reality though, there's nobody even worth going for. So what to do when you have loads of money and nothing to buy in free agency? You start to trade. I'll see you at the start of the season with our new team.
Let's go, 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 White Sox!
I'm not sure I've ever had a save where the universe gave me the finger quite this many times, whilst also giving me a bunch of tiny ice creams to distract me from all the damage. Let's start with IAFA, where my favourite Caballero decided that he hated Chicago. We had to go for the backup option of Luis Cucalon. He's currently the number 3 top prospect, so I shouldn't complain too much about it. I will, but I shouldn't. Next up, the magical Japanese gremlin signed a contract with the Yankees, for around about what I would have offered in my one final offer. He probably would have just gone for more later, but I'm attached to him now. At least we have money to spend if we get to the trade deadline with a shot at the playoffs. And speaking of trades, we did make 2. One was for a decent bullpen arm in Tyler Holton. He went for a younger but worse pitcher who lacks control. The second trade was for the top quality starter, Zach Eflin. He was swapped for Chandler Simpson, you might remember him from last time out, and a nothing prospect. He'll be our number 2 starter behind Crochet, and in general, our whole pitching staff is looking like it could compete against the best. Especially if some waiver claims come into play, Michael King and Keegan Aiken could be game changers, and Coulomb would boost up the bullpen well too. You'll notice Drew Thorpe in our number 4 spot currently. That's because he got an outstanding result from the dev lab and was boosted by 2 clicks of velocity. No increase in his stuff just yet, but it may climb up during the season. And whilst we're talking about the dev lab, there's someone very special that we need to talk about. That's our golden boy Monty, who got a bump in his defense. He's looking like a bona fide Hall of Fame candidate at such a young age. Usually I'd manipulate his contract years, but in a short save I'll just let him build up his counting numbers so we can look at him with stars in our eyes at the end. No defensive boost for Cuero this time round, but the manager says he's ready for the big leagues too, so I won't get in his way, especially with him signed to that team-friendly contract, which we managed to do for last year's first pick, you savage. I'm finding it incredibly easy to sign up young players to these in this year's game. Are you able to as well? It's the kind of thing which doesn't seem fully realistic, but also in real life players don't exactly have the same potential ratings we have here to go off of. Anyway, this is what our lineup's going to look like going into the season, led by our 2 stars, Robert Jr. and Monty. Here's what our former best hitter's looking like, by the way. He is another we tried to get a defensive boost with in the lab, but it didn't work out. We have a little bit of help in AAA, but not much, so we're not running with depth. There aren't any owner goals, but I'd imagine he'd be hoping for a 500 season. I honestly think our pitching can carry us through to a winning season, especially if the batters get on a hot streak. What are your predictions? Put them down in the comments. If you get it right, you get those 10 points I took away from you earlier. The preseason predictions say 71-91, which, I'll say it now, is way off. And if it isn't, I'll be sacking the manager in the morning. I'm gonna go for 84 and 78, although that might change depending on if we take on any contracts at the trade deadline. Believe in Monty Mole. Believe in Garrett crocheting multiple woolly hats for his teammates. I'll see you at the draft.
Let's go, 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 White Sox!
Hey! Remember when I said we should be getting a winning record this season? Well, that was wrong. Our batting, terrible. Our pitching, which definitely should be good, terrible. None of the stars are stepping up and nothing is working. And I can't even blame the catcher because the manager isn't even using Cuero as the starter. We've just been awful. Our record only a smidge stronger than last year by this point. Forget trying to bump up our prospects in next year's dev lab. Every single slot is going on defensive improvements. There's only one thing I let myself do during the simulating, and that's checking up on the locked prospects to see if they need to be promoted. But I do notice things. One of the things I noticed is the assistant GM has an IQ of negative 1,000. We have incredibly solid players as minor league free agents sitting in AAA, but they insist on bringing up players who just aren't up to scratch. Half stars. He's also decided to sign up around 40 minor league free agents. Are any of them useful? No. They are all catchers. Every single one. I'm not gonna go count it, but look! What's the madman doing? The manager's getting sacked at the end of the year, and I look forward to looking him straight in the eyes and ripping up the contract as his soul shatters into a million pieces. Speaking of contracts, Monty's on one now. It's chunky, but pretty reasonable, and definitely team-friendly once again. He's been our best player this season, but that's not really saying much. Anyway, it's the draft now. Picking in our terrible 9th spot. Shall we see what happens? Going 9th overall for the Chicago White Sox in the 2025 first-year player draft is college catcher Caden Bovine. This year's draft is incredibly low level everywhere, including the high schoolers, so we've gone for the best college hitter who might give Quera some food for thought in a couple of years. Our second rounder is college pitcher Cam Leiter. He might be able to eat some innings towards the end of the rebuild. In the third round, we took two-way high schooler Billy Carlson. There were actually a total of three-star two-way shortstops in high school we could have taken at this point. Carlson looked marginally better than the other two in the pitching department, but I doubt he'll make any impact for us other than trade bait or farm numbers. And the last one for now, our fourth rounder is the speedy hitter Everett Johnson, another where we aren't likely to get any kind of impact in the near term. That's a bit of a bummer, isn't it? Not sure we'll have much help from the draft in the coming years, so I guess we need to hope the draft lottery is kinda to us next time round so we can get the best college player available in 2026. Let's get to the trade deadline and see where we stand for this season though.
Let's go, 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 White Sox!
Well, it's been a very busy and very strange July for the White Sox. We managed to squeeze in a winning month after our heinous June, and we got a total of 7 trades done of various values. The main thing we did was flip the old men we signed on minor league contracts, some of whom had been playing in the big leagues, for players with more years of control, as well as the players going into free agency like Fedde and Deflin. Our only all-star was also shipped off, Ahmed Rosario. He was doing well, but asking for $8 million or so to stay next year, so there was no reason for me to not give him to a contender. Considering how my last prediction went, I'm not gonna say whether or not I think the players we got in will do well. But I wouldn't have traded for them if I didn't have an ounce of hope in their abilities. You can pause if you want to check out one in more detail. This is what the manager wants the team to look like for the end of the season, as well as the pitching staff. Let's see where we end up in October.
Let's go, 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 White Sox!
Okay, where do I actually start with this season? We end up on a 58-104 record, only 3 games better off than last year. An absolutely pitiful May and June saw us in a position where no matter what, we wouldn't be looking good at the end of the year. July onwards was much more respectable, pretty much the same as last year. Our players might have even been able to look their parents in the eyes if that was our form throughout, but it wasn't. The 3 players we expected to stand out did. Monty had an excellent offensive rookie season, but was terrible defensively, especially when the manager put him out at short. Robert and Crochet both picked up in the second half, although their first half performance meant their numbers were nowhere near last year's. The Astros beat the Cardinals in the World Series. That means it's another prediction wrong. The Orioles went out in the division series, so they're not becoming a dynasty. But on the bright side, at least we weren't worst overall. The A's and the Nationals both had 56 wins, 2 fewer than us. That means the likelihood of us getting a good draft slot goes down. Fun. I'm sure we'll be fine. Tyler Neighbors and Trey Savage are both progressing nicely in AA. None of the other prospects look like they'll be near the majors soon. We're still a top 10 farm system though. Actually, we've jumped from 7th to 4th in a year, so that goal looks like it should stay completed by the end. The Gremlin had a really nice first year for the Yankees, but at least Mr. Condon's potential seems to be slipping with Cleveland's tutelage. Small victories. But if you're particularly eagle-eyed, you may have noticed that our losses keep stacking up as our fan loyalty has dropped from below average to poor. It hasn't had a major impact on our budget for next year, but it's definitely a worry. Let's hope we can get the team back to winning ways in 2026.